Hi everyone, my name's Leslie Barclay. I'm recording from Australia in New South Wales. Thankfully we haven't been troubled by any of the floods that have been going on in Queensland and the East Coast. We're kind of a bit more rural. But anyway, that's not related to the devotion that I wanted to do with you guys today. Now, I wasn't planning on recording anything about Exodus today. I actually thought maybe I might look at the Psalms and some of David's writing as inspiration and encouragement for us as writers. But as I was thinking about how encouraged I was by Bethany's devotion last week, I was also led to a passage in Exodus, from Exodus chapter 15, which occurs after the Israelites had been led through the waters by God and protected. And the passage that I wanted to focus on was verses 20 and 21. Then Miriam the prophetess, Aaron's sister, took a tambourine in her hand, and all the women followed her with tambourines and dancing. Miriam sang to them, "Sing to the Lord, for he is highly exalted. The horse and its rider he has hurled into the sea." So on the night of the first Passover, I'm sure you're all familiar with the story, it must have been super intense for the Israelites. Like, God told them that they needed to eat with their cloaks on, they needed to eat with their staff in their hand, they needed to eat with their sandals on their feet. So they had to be ready to go. Everything was ready. So it wasn't like a relaxing meal where you're sitting around the dinner table and you're having a conversation with your family. It was a tense meal. Like, they knew what was going on outside, and I imagine, like, if I was there, I think I would have felt a significant amount of fear and doubt as to whether or not God was actually going to pass over me or not. So they ate in haste, and when Moses and Aaron were summoned to see Pharaoh, and Pharaoh just was like, "Get out, like, I've had enough of your nonsense, get out of my country." Everyone had to leave in darkness. They had their dough of unleavened bread in hand, and they weren't ready. It was a time of change. It was a time of turmoil, upheaval. They were leaving the only home that they had ever known, and things were never going to be the same. And I imagine for some of them it would have been a time of significant trauma as well. And then so when they might have been just about to relax. So they're out of Egypt, a couple of days have passed. They're being led by the pillar of cloud by day and the pillar of fire by night. And, they're out. It's happened. Moses has done it. God has come through, and they're starting to relax. Like, it's almost over. We're going to go back to our new normal now. But then Pharaoh comes with his troops, and he's charging at them in pursuit. And I can just imagine the terror that they would have felt at that time. That moment of relief, that moment of thinking things were going to be all right, would have made, I think, the terror even more acute and worrying them for them. And they actually started to cry out against God and against Moses. And they were like, "God, it would have been better if we just stayed as slaves in Egypt. Oh, why'd you have to mess everything up, Moses? Better to live as slaves than to die in the desert, following God." But God didn't prove them wrong. He had shown his wonders in Egypt through the plagues, destroying, and now he then destroyed Egypt's chariots as well. He drew them out and he destroyed them in the water. So the water that saved the Israelites was actually the tool of Pharaoh's destruction. So that no nation could question whether or not God was in control. No nation could question his glory. No nation could question whether or not he was the one who had brought Israel out of Egypt. So everyone around, all the surrounding nations, and even 40 years later, all the surrounding nations, Jericho is described as being in great fear of Israel when they come to take over. So God showed his might and he showed his glory in his victory. So that leads me back to the passage that I read at the beginning. And you might be wondering, why are we talking about tambourines when we're talking about victory and that kind of thing? So Miriam and the women danced and sang, and they played tambourines to the Lord. Now, that word struck me, tambourines, like musical instruments. They packed their musical instruments, and they're running out. Their bread's not cooked, it's unleavened. They've got their cloaks tucked into their undergarments or whatever. Like, they're in a hurry, and they pack tambourines and they put them up the top, like, so they're easy to access, because they were ready. They were ready to praise God they knew, it was like an expression of faith, that they knew that in the midst of all the hardship and all the troubling times that they were going through, that they one day would be able to get out those tambourines and sing and dance to God. Now, I'm sure you guys have all noticed that the situation over the last couple of years in the world is not the most conducive to living peaceful, untroubled lives. We're just starting to see some kind of return to a new normal from the situation with the pandemic. And then suddenly another world power comes charging in with his soldiers, maybe not chariots, but charging into a country that's not his own. And he's lusting for war and for conquest. And like the Israelites, I personally have cried out to God in terror and wondering whether or not it would be better to just let Putin have the country that he wants rather than to stand firm and to risk going to war. But God doesn't call us to live as slaves to fear. God doesn't call us to the path of least resistance. Closer to home in my own situation, we've had terrible floods in Queensland. Some of my family have been affected by that. Not terribly, like their houses are fine, but just in terms of not being able to get out of their houses and power being cut off and everything. And a couple of weeks ago, my beloved father-in-law, who a lovely Christian man, passed into glory. So like, there's a lot going on, and it can be so easy when there's so much going on to doubt God, to doubt his goodness, to doubt his ability to deal with the situation. And when you feel like that, when you feel like there's so much turmoil that's coming in from outside, it can be hard to write. And it's like, it can cause you to question whether or not it's even right to be doing something so, I guess, frivolous in some regards. Some people, I don't know what your families might think of your writing, but some people might consider it to be frivolous, to be spending your time and your energy and your thoughts making up stories when there's so much happening in the world. But God calls us to use our gifts, even when everything around us is falling apart, especially when everything around us is falling apart. And he promises that he's going to use all things for the good of those who love him. So if we offer our gifts up as an act of glory to God, even in the hard times, God is going to use that. His glory is not going to fail, and nothing can separate us from his love. Not pandemics, not war, not flood, not fire, not death, nothing. And so I guess what I want to ask you and maybe challenge you is, in this tough time, have you packed your tambourine? Is it sitting on the top of your bag? Your metaphorical tambourine, of course, your laptop, your pen, your notebooks. Are you ready to praise God with your creativity through your writing, to write stories that can inspire, that can encourage, that can entertain and impart a message, even if it's not, I saw the post this morning, a Lewis or a Tolkien, like even if you're not doing it directly through allegory, can you encourage people through the message behind your words? Because there will come a day for praise, and maybe that day is not today for you. Maybe there is too much going on in your head and it's all that you can do to just cling to God. But there will be a day that you will come through the waters and you won't be in terror anymore, and you'll be ready to praise God. So have you packed your tambourine? Are you ready to use your gifts, your gift of writing, your gift of being a mum, your gift of loving others? Are you ready? Have you packed your tambourine? Hopefully that's an encouraging thought for you this morning.